Hello everyone. Welcome to our Lounge Alley. This is the project stream, and it's part 51. It's moving along, and I'm actually excited about it because it's in the next stages of the drawing. This is where I'm going to be finalizing more of what's going on, maybe making some adjustments. But it's gonna be a lot easier to do them with these features more defined. Yeah, as you guys can see, I've been doing some work on it off stream. Just because I really do feel like it deserves more attention. I really want to finish up this project and start working on the next idea that I got going on. Now there is something that I came across today that I found interesting, and it's a huge topic. It's really a big topic. It's not something that I'm trying to resolve, but it is something that I am that I wanted to bring up and get you guys thinking about it. I came across a post that was talking about the concept of beauty and how the idea of beauty is very subjective. Now they were claiming that there was no such thing, and that it really heavily depends on the culture that you're from. You know, some places, what we deem to be beautiful, they wouldn't really care for it, and it would be the complete opposite of, let's say, what Western society or Eastern society would consider to be beautiful. But I do. And I personally, I don't agree. I think that there is something that pretty much everybody would deem to be beautiful, you know. And I think that a lot of it has to do with health. You know, so if somebody's physique suggests unhealthy condition, it tells us, I think, like psychologically or in the back of our head, the idea that this person is gonna come across a lot of problems. You know, they're gonna be closer to the idea of death. Or that is going to be looming, whereas somebody who's in really good physical shape is going to be capable of, let's say, in certain scenarios of disaster or in certain scenarios of trying to survive a certain situation, right? It kind of comes down to this idea of like survival. Now, I don't agree with the idea of like survival of the fit or whatever, because again, we don't live in a jungle. We live in a society, in a civilized society, and that really doesn't apply. But in terms of just this concept, that we are still in some ways under that condition, with these hurricanes around, these natural disasters that happen, certain things might occur, or whatever it is, our desire to survive and our desire to and our innate, fight or flight instincts all kind of center around that idea, right? The idea of just surviving, trying to avoid danger, protecting our bodies, protecting our minds. So I think that to us, that is really appealing as human beings. It's appealing to see ourselves physically in really good shape. It makes us feel good. It makes us feel confident that when it does come down to scenarios like that we do stand a chance, as opposed to somebody who isn't in really good shape, who's out of shape, who isn't really putting in any effort when it comes to that. So I think that on its own highlights the concept that beauty does exist as a standard. Now, for some people, it might not be the only way that they see beauty. They could see, of course, you could see beauty in somebody who isn't in top shape. That's not what I mean. I don't mean that anybody who isn't is considered to be unattractive or whatever else. But what I am saying is that that is an attractive quality for everybody. So just because of that, because of this idea, that it would benefit us as people in terms of surviving. In terms of not coming across scenarios where you might die, whether it's health issues or whatever else. So, I don't really agree with this concept of, beauty doesn't exist at all. I think like aesthetic, there is definitely a taste that becomes more widely accepted because of things like, for example, what we consider to be successful. So if somebody's really successful, right, people naturally, well, I wouldn't say naturally, I think systemically want to follow that person and be like, oh, well, what is it that they like and why? And they kind of would venture into it, or they just want to emulate it, because they admire the person for their success. So with like admiration, there's this like mimicry that comes with it. So I think that kind of goes into effect when it comes to like, cultures and things that are shaped by it and society's outlook on certain things. I think that's where taste really starts to shift. But I think it is kind of hard to say universally, but I'm going to say that would be the universal trait for beauty is good physique. It's not just for sex appeal, and it's not just for what people would go into that whole like genetics thing and like reproduction and all that other stuff. It's just simply in terms of coming across all sorts of physical obstacles, like complications, whether it comes through you fighting through a cold and stuff, those kind of things all become heavily reliant on your physical shape. And a lot of it has to do with like, well, are you exercising? Are you eating well? So those things start to also reflect, in terms of the condition of somebody's skin, where if they're eating healthy, that just naturally makes their physical appearance even better. So a lot of it has to do with that. It's not, I don't think it's just this like standard beauty that's marked by capitalism. Like, oh, there are these models that are shaped by the interest of somebody with a lot of money. I think that these other elements that I was just mentioning really do play into things because of these survival concepts. But I think capitalism takes that and of course exploits it, right? So you got people who are anorexic because somebody exaggerated the idea of being thin as being attractive, whereas really it just kind of plays into being in good shape, not like coat hanger thin. That's not healthy. It's not healthy at all, especially with the stuff that I've heard where models are like eating tissues as a way to like not feel hungry. Just crazy. It's absolutely insane. And the kind of eating disorders and problems, like health issues that come from it, of hair falling out and like all this other stuff, it's just wild. And again, this is done for fame and money and to appease some crazy capitalist. That's not healthy. I don't agree with that at all.
What's the cost of love? Feeling lost yet above. Everybody who ever treated me wrong, all they get is my back. I don't cry, I shrug. Recently was helping with the pain, it's all the shrug. It is what it is.
I'm gonna have to skip this.
Others chose money over the bitches, I chose love.
But I would say that pretty much does it, because other features I think are very subjective. Face features and all that other stuff. I mean, I don't really know what else would there be aside from when we're talking about like physical appearance. Like, those are the things that come to mind. But I think everything else is really subjective, and it is a matter of what is accepted culturally, or what's been echoing through society in wherever it is that you're from, as this is what's attractive. But essentially, I think a lot of it is very much person to person. If people took the time to actually explore themselves and figure out like, what are they really attracted to? What's an uncommon feature or look that people like, that is considered to be attractive to them. Standards of beauty would vary drastically. Not a fan of how these these shadows are turning up on pants. I'm gonna have to redo them. Yeah, I think that if more people took the time to really explore what they find attractive for themselves rather than following these trends of beauty, we'd have a much healthier society. You know, you have some women who really get caught up in this like standard of beauty. You know, you got women who are going in and doing plastic surgery and then coming out looking exactly the same as somebody else who's done plastic surgery, like blown out lips and you know, Botox and all this other stuff, and it becomes like it just doesn't, it's not healthy. You know, it doesn't look healthy. There's a lot of pain, I'm sure, that is involved in it. And it seems to be like a thing where they're appeasing somebody else's standard of beauty. You know, they're just not liking how they look, because most likely people criticized that according to their standard of what they like, and instead of the person really just saying, well, I don't care, you know, I do like myself and I'm not here to appease you for it, and I'll find somebody who does like my appearance. They end up going and getting all these plastic surgery things done, and it's not really good. It creates a lot of insecurity. Or it's coming from a lot of insecurity, and that's why a lot of people who do plastic surgery end up going back and doing it again and again and again. Is because there's a part of them that just doesn't like themselves, so they think, oh, if I change this and I change that, then I will like myself more, you know, I'll like whatever. And that's problematic. That really is incredibly unhealthy, because there is no end in sight when it comes to that. You know, it's something to do that's with psychological things. Like, things that they're going through mentally, that start to affect their outlook on themselves physically as well. And I think the only way around that is by actually resolving those psychological issues and hang-ups and stuff. Really getting to the root of it all. Or they could have somebody who's really toxic in their life, who's just constantly taking them down or making them like criticize themselves in that manner, or it could be a combination of both. It could be themselves and somebody that is around them that's really making them not like themselves. Now, I'm not knocking plastic surgery completely, because there are certain things that there's definitely benefit to it when it comes to like accidents, when it comes to just certain scenarios where it's more acceptable. I just don't think that it's healthy in an extreme form where it becomes almost like a hobby, or just like an incessant thing that people are going after. And that's not just in modern day. This is an issue that's been going on for centuries. Like, I'm going to say even like during Egyptian times, it was probably the same problem as well, right? Like, what the standard of beauty was heavily dependent on who was in power and what they liked, and what they dressed like, what kind of features they had, and people of that time wanted to emulate that, to be associated with that person, or seen in some light as that person. So I'm not going to say that it's only like a modern day thing, but it is a capitalist thing for sure as well. And that time period was no exception. I mean, it was pretty much all about that. It was the worst part of capitalism, because they had, a bunch of people slaving away, getting abused, beaten in order to be able to create structures for somebody who was incredibly rich and had these like God complexes. Where they were just like, I need this to be a representation of me and my greatness, and everybody has to suffer for it, and they would just beat and abuse all sorts of people for that endeavor, just for that concept. And that's insane. That's a sickness that obviously has such long history. Creating a giant pyramid that's supposed to touch the sky. Like, how egotistical is that? I mean, it's a interesting endeavor if it's not at the expense of people, and not at that not in that method. Not by abusing and using people and like killing people and making them miserable and all that other stuff so you can get that statue. Like, not at that expense. I don't agree with that. But yeah, it's just to highlight how that egomaniac kind of approach has been around for centuries. and how the standard of beauty is shaped by those who are rich and quote unquote in control. And how toxic that becomes, right? I mean, just that in that example, how toxic is that? But I think what I was discussing before, the concept of beauty in reference to health in terms of shape, I think there is lots of benefit to it, because it doesn't say, oh, if you have these features, then you should be healthy looking and you should be in shape. It's pretty much everybody, no matter what your features are. I think they're 10 times more attractive if they are in really good shape. And it also signals other things as well, like determination. It's not easy to do that. You know, you have to be diligent. You have to be disciplined. You know, you have to be able to every day wake up and exercise and keep yourself in shape and make sure that you have enough time in your day to do it. So that's a really attractive quality as well, right? It's beyond just exercising. The idea that people are goal-oriented, that's an attractive quality. And that isn't something, I don't think that's something subjective. I mean, that's really something that pretty much applies to anything, whether you're in a tribe or you're living in modern day society, or if you're living in east or west or wherever. It doesn't matter. Those are all, I feel like, great qualities to have, regardless of your location, regardless of your features. So, you know, that I feel like represents beauty. And I think it's really unhealthy, as I mentioned, for there to be like a standard of beauty. You know, because when people don't fall into those categories, aside from health, you know, because again, there's multiple benefits to it. It's not superficial. It's not just like, oh, just so that people could think you're hot or whatever. It's like, no, there's like life benefits to it. You really, you gain so much from disciplining yourself to exercise. I'm talking about just like certain features, like, oh, blondes or redheads or this kind of nose or this kind of lips or whatever else. Like those minute details, I feel like that is really, it becomes really toxic, because again, if somebody doesn't fall into that category and people all accept that, oh yeah, this is the standard of beauty, and if somebody doesn't look like that, well then sucks for them, you know, like they're not going to be it, or they're not going to be as attractive. Or, you know, if I do see somebody and they're interested in me and they have those features, I'll take them over somebody who doesn't, you know, like really vain things like that, I think become really toxic. And especially girls too, like really young girls, because again, that's um, a sensitive time period for them, because a lot of them develop and notice how their appearance really starts to shift how guys interact around them, or their attractiveness and so on and so forth. So if they're growing up and the signal out there is like, oh, unless you have these these type of features, then you're not considered to be as attractive, or this is the kind of features that men want. So, you better appease that, with plastic surgeries. That's why, there was like a post that I saw recently that talked about how girls younger and younger are going in to get like these lip injections and Botox and all this other stuff, and it's just terrible, man. It's so bad, and most of them end up regretting it, because it's like it really jeopardizes their health and their self-esteem, and even the outcome ends up looking terrible in the long run. And that also has a lot to do with what kind of messages are being put out there. And probably just the repercussions of social media, because you see these kids are going on social media and they're looking at the numbers, right? They're seeing like 50,000 likes, and it's somebody who has like these type of features, and they read comments and people are like talking about those features or whatever else, and then they get these ideas of like, well, if I look like that, then I'm gonna get that sort of attention, and that's really unhealthy. And of course, it also has to do with parenting, because if you have some parent who is involved with their kids and shaping their self-esteem in a healthy way, talking to them about all this stuff and giving them good, like, progressive values and intelligent values, not these superficial, monetizing, like egocentric values, then the kid ends up making better choices. It doesn't do Botox at the age of 14 or whatever. And I think a lot of these kids who end up doing this stuff is because of that as well. It's like they're not getting the proper foundation from their parents. And I think that also ties into, this is something that I believe as well, is like that ties into how much time parents have. For example, like if you're working all day, you come home, you're frustrated from the day or whatever your work environment was. You kind of want to unwind and have time for yourself to kind of relax and recollect yourself, kind of, and sometimes they end up like just doing things that help them do that instead of spending time with their kids and trying to like talk to them and develop a close relationship and a connection, really, in ways where they can share all those kind of things, and it would benefit both, and the parent and the kid. So they end up like, I don't know, sitting there on the phone, and so I get it. I mean, I get that becomes a thing. So, if people had more time, rather than working all day, working 14 hours a day, something that I was talking about before, where, from door to door and back, and by the time you're done with your basics, you only have like an hour left to yourself, so I think if we were to change that, if we were to change it to, let's say, 5 hours, the most that you would work is 5 hours a day, people would get back, they would have time to unwind and also shape their family to be more healthy, more productive, and have better bonds with their kids. Also, not be incredibly stressed out because they just got back home, and now they got to go to bed and do it all over again. So that all ties into it as well. It's like being exploited basically for your time, draining your energy and leaving you with nothing to offer and create better relationships. So, people wonder why. Well, that's one of the leading causes. And then people drink a lot, and then they do drugs a lot because of that drudgery. And as I mentioned, they were like, the solution is to have more churches. No, the solution is to give people the time to actually unwind and recollect themselves and be in good mood, because they could do other things with their life and create better connections with people. And that's the real solution. But capitalists don't want that. They want you working, making them profits. They want you to be miserable, because with misery you shop and buy things, and you're also on your toes, which is supposed to help them with their work performance, right? Or making sure that people are performing well. They don't want you to smart, realizing like, oh, you're getting exploited and you're being treated poorly and you're being gaslit at work and you're around somebody who's incredibly toxic, and of course not. Which is why we need to change that. That's not sustainable. With more people being in that state, it just breeds more frustration, violence, aggression, hatred, all those things start to stem from being overworked, being constantly harassed, not having enough time to actually unwind and enjoy yourself, barely paying bills, for a lot of people. I think that might be the case. So all that echoes through society. You go into you go out and you try to have a good time, and you have a bunch of people who are working these jobs that don't pay the bills, and they're incredibly frustrated, and that comes out onto people around them. So you go out and you try to have a good time, but you're surrounded by people who are incredibly frustrated, miserable, and resentful that they can't do the same thing with their time. That's a toxic society. That's a toxic form of interaction. and it breeds a lot of aggression. That's kind of why I think society is where it is. It's for all these reasons combined together. Add in the effects of alcohol and drug abuse, and how that puts people into a different state of mind and confusion and the ups and downs from doing all those things, and you have this toxic cocktail. But as you guys could see, a lot of it stems from the idea that people just don't have enough time throughout their day because of this toxic work structure and work culture in general. It's at the root of a lot of issues. And as I mentioned very frequently, the way you change it is by banding together and protesting and really doing something about it as people, rather than feeding into this spiteful culture that's cultivated by all these businesses. Oh, you're better than this person, you're like this, you deserve special treatment, and then that ripples through. You have these features, you're better than that toxic cultural value that everybody really is sucked into, and how that ripples through, and how effective it is in making sure people don't band together and change things for the better. So I think more and more people have to realize that and start strategizing against it, and having more expectations, I think, from people who are rich, politicians and all those other people who don't share these capitalist fascist values, to create businesses and jobs that don't breed those kind of environments, don't breed those kind of values. So there could be a lot of things to do about it. A lot of people are like, well, what's the solution? I think that's a really good amount of them. I think those are all things to really focus and consider and try to strategize and fight against. If you have no idea what causes things, yeah, it's more challenging. Where do you start? But I believe all those things are a pretty good indication and a good list of sources. think another one, and this might be a little bit more, I guess, specific, but when we're talking about the concept of beauty, is other things, aside from like uh, face features or whatever. Like, for example, somebody who's a very good dancer, like that, I think is really attractive um, because of their body language. And also, not just that, but how they're in tune with something other than themselves in a way. Like, you have to be in tune with music and rhythm. And, those are things that kind of are, that kind of exist outside of you. For you to be able to notice them, you have to pay attention to those qualities, and be connected with them. And that's something you could learn. Like, I don't think that is something that's exclusive to genes, or it's a skill. It's a way of being in tune, similar to like drawing, right? Like, I believe anybody could figure this out, or get better and better through practice, through determination. To really focus on that. I think that's the beauty of like all these different fields, is that they allow you to take yourself outside of yourself and pay attention to something different. Pay attention to line work, pay attention to other people's art, because you're so interested in getting better. It's healthy. It's really healthy mentally for you to be able to just focus on these different activities and all these goals that are outside of whatever is going on in your head, like all the different thoughts and the whole like social culture and all this other stuff, like things that people are really find themselves tied into, or like social expectations and standards of beauty and all this other stuff. Like all these hobbies kind of take you out of that. You don't focus on that anymore. You're focusing on that specific hobby. You're focusing on learning how to dance better, so that requires you to really look into other dancers and the kind of dances that you like, and practice, not just liking it, not just reading about it, but to actually practice them as well and get better and really dive into it. Well, ladies and gents, it is slowly coming to a close for the night. I had a blast as always. Didn't even think I was going to actually talk about that topic as much as I did. But it is an interesting concept. And I'm sure I just scratched the surface when it comes to it. It's just something that popped up in today's day. And I thought, that's an interesting idea to explore, maybe discuss on stream. So yeah, I'm gonna have to call it a night, but I will be back, of course, tomorrow, same time and place, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, right here at the Art Lounge Alley on Twitch. So if you guys do enjoy this content, check out the Patreon page. Remember to hit the like and subscribe button. They both help the stream. They're greatly appreciated by yours truly. And can't promise I'm not going to do more work on this off stream. I am kind of into it, but I will try to resist. All right, ladies and gents, enjoy the rest of your night, and I will see you tomorrow.